Hi everyone, welcome to another 7-minute software video. Today we're going to cover orthographic drawing in Rhino. But before we get into Rhino, let's cover a couple of basic concepts related to orthographic drawing. Now the first concept that we need to recap is projection. Projection is a technique where we imagine rays coming out of our eyes. We can set up a picture plane intersecting those rays, which would capture the geometry that we're looking at and allow us to record precisely how the geometry is structured. Here, what you might notice is that the rays are shooting out in a kind of cone shape from the eye. This mimics the way that the eye actually sees. But one thing that comes up as an issue in this type of projection is that it also mimics the way that objects are foreshortened in space. There is a horizon line when we look at objects, and typically those objects become smaller as they get closer to the horizon, as they get farther away from the eye. And so a different type of projection that you might be familiar with is orthographic projection. Now orthographic projection doesn't rely on rays that are shooting out of an eye, but rather takes the rays from the object and shoots them into the picture plane in a parallel trajectory. Every single line that comes from the object is parallel to each other. And so in this diagram you can see that there is a one-to-one relationship between the object and the depiction of it in the picture plane itself. We use orthographic projection in architectural drafting so we can create measured drawings. Some examples of orthographic drawing in architectural representation are elevations, sections, plans, and isometrics and axonometrics. This is a nice example of the different types of projection that are available to us and how each type of projection works with these imaginary rays and the picture plane to form an image. With all of that in mind, let's start making orthographic drawings in Rhino. The first thing that we have to think about when we're in Rhino is that our viewports are essentially picture planes, where all of the lines and colors are coming together and represented as a flat 2D image that's on my screen. Now the default viewport in Rhino is the perspective viewport, and the other viewports that we see here are orthographic, right? So the top viewport is a flat 2D representation of the world that I'm looking at in Rhino. The back viewport and the left viewport are different side views. You can tell it's orthographic because of the flat projection, right? I'm not seeing a horizon, I'm not seeing foreshortening of objects as they get deeper into space. And so this is really, really important. We need to understand the difference between the different viewports because we need to start to interpret the viewport as different types of picture planes that will help us create different types of projection. Let's start with the simplest projection that we have so far, which is an elevation. Now an elevation is an orthographic drawing that represents the side or the front or the left or the back of an object. It is always a view from the outside of the object itself. Rhino makes it very easy to draw elevations because it already gives you a set of default viewports that are looking at an object from its different sides. What we're going to do is we're going to produce vector drawing elevation using the make2d command. Let's say that we want to take elevations of every single side of our house. We'll start with the back. Select all the objects in the viewport for the orientation that you're trying to draw. So I'm trying to draw the back, so I'll maximize the back viewport and I'll select everything and I'm going to run the make2d command. And so make2d automates the production of lines from any geometry in Rhino. You just have to confirm that the view is set up to match the viewport that you're looking at, and we want to set it to view. And we're going to keep everything the way that it is here by default. We're going to hit OK. Make2d produces a drawing and automatically puts it on your construction plane, which is by default in the top viewport. So we can select our drawing that has been produced by make2d, and we're going to use the ground of Rhino as our drawing plane, as we did in the previous video. So this is our back elevation. And now let's do the right elevation. So we're going to do the same thing, and we run make2d again with the exact same options. And now we have our right elevation. Pretty simple. Now let's try it again from the front. So I'm going to switch the view from the back to the front so we can get our front elevation. Make2d. And I'm just kind of loosely arranging these over here. I will align them later on when it's time to finalize the drawings. And instead of the right, I'm going to switch this to the left. And I'm going to run make2d again. And so now I've got all four sides of my house represented as orthographic drawings. These are perfectly acceptable orthographic drawings. We will need to manipulate the lines later on. Make 2D gets you about 95% of the way there, but you will have to double check that all the lines are exactly where you want them for your drawing. So there's always some extra drawing or extra trimming or editing that you have to do to make 2D drawings. That's always very important to keep in mind. Elevations are the easiest drawing that you can make in this way. That's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to go over plans and sections, which are a little bit more complicated, but follow the same exact process. Thanks for watching.